Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another book video for you guys. If you haven't gathered by now, if you're new around here, I really love reading. And every 3 months I do a little reading recap where I talk about all the books that I've read in the past quarter, just because I don't read fast enough to do these every month. And I'm not really a booktuber, but I do like to talk about books. So let's talk about the books that I've read over the past 3 months. If a book that I talk about was a library book or an audio book, I'll put the picture of the book on the screen so you still get to see the cover and stuff, but I just don't have all of the physical copies that I'm going to talk about today. But let's jump straight into it because I have a lot to talk about and I'm going to try and keep it concise. We'll see if I'm successful. Starting off strong with a 5-star read for me, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Talia Jenkins Reid. This book was absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if I can fault it. It made me laugh, it made me cry, I fell in love with some of the characters. It was such an incredible story. I feel like everyone knows about this book now, but if you haven't heard about it, it's all about the life of Evelyn Hugo, who is a fictional character, but she is an incredibly successful actress, and it goes through how she kind of rose to fame and all the things that happened in her life, and she lived the most incredible, glamorous, scandalous life. So if you haven't read this, I don't even know how to describe it because there's so much that happens in this book. I feel like if you were to read any of the books that I talk about in this video, this would be the one. Another 5-star read for me was Redeeming Love by Francine. This is the first Christian fiction book that I have read and I absolutely loved it. I definitely want to read more of Francine Rivers' books because it was just stunning. This book is a retelling of the book of Hosea from the Bible, and whether you're a Christian or not, whether you've read the story of Hosea or not, I think this is one of the most beautiful, heartbreaking, incredible love stories that I've ever read. Basically, it's about a young girl who was sold into prostitution at a young age and she grows up in the prostitution world. But one day a man comes along called Michael Hosea and he falls in love with her, and she does not fall in love with him back, but he rescues her from the sex trade industry and spends a really long time trying to teach her what real love is because she's never really quite understood it or had that in her life. So this is my heart just breaks thinking about this book, but it's so beautiful. You guys need to check it out. The next book I read was an audiobook and it was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. I apologize for any names I mispronounce in this video. I'm not the best at it. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be offensive, but I'll include everything on the screen for you guys anyway and link everything in the description box if you want to check these out for yourself. But The Kiss Quotient was good. It was fine. It was a 3-star read for me. I feel like it was a little bit overhyped. I did love the characters. This story is about our main character, who is a woman with autism who is trying to navigate the world of love and relationships and all that kind of stuff, and she meets a man called Michael who she then pays to kind of teach her the ropes, if that makes sense. And I really did love the concept of the story. I just wish they went into the storyline a little bit more. I feel like the author focused so much on the sexual tension and all that sort of stuff to the point where the storyline actually lacked because of it. And I honestly feel like a lot of books fall into this category, and some people love it and some people don't, and I feel like I'm more on the side of the people who don't, just because I would much rather read a really great plot and a really great story or just something with a lot of depth than to read romances that just have a lot of sexual tension. I just don't think it's super unique. I just don't really care for it, but that's also my personal opinion and I know so many people love it. So if that's your vibe, definitely recommend this book. It's just not mine, and you'll be able to see that throughout lots of other books that I talk about as well. I just way prefer books that are really plot driven or character driven rather than super smutty or super lust driven, if that makes any sense. Another book that kind of fell into that category for me personally was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I did enjoy this. This was a fun read. I feel like this is perfect if you want a really light, fun romance. I would definitely recommend this. I think the reasons why I didn't love this book was, again, because it kind of fell into that sexual tension kind of category that I just mentioned, which just isn't my vibe personally. But I feel like there were just a couple things that if this book had done a little bit better, I would have really, really enjoyed it. So one thing is our main character, Chloe Brown, has chronic pain, and I really wish the author would have explained this a little bit more. I feel like the character would have had so much more depth. I feel like I would have been able to kind of empathize with the character a lot more. But for someone who doesn't have a lot of outside understanding of chronic pain going into this story, I just wish I knew a little bit more, and I feel like I would have benefited a lot from more of an explanation of that. And in the same way, our love interest, Reid, he was nice and he was funny, but he had a backstory where he came from a relationship that wasn't so healthy, and that kind of tarnished his view on future relationships. However, I wish they would have gone again more into depth of his past relationship, because I feel like they kind of brushed over it, but it was such a huge part of kind of how he perceived things, and you just didn't get that full understanding from the way they described it. But overall, it was a fun read. I did love the dynamic between Chloe and Reid. I loved their witty, funny comments, and I loved that they were kind of just best friends as well as lovers. So I do recommend this one. It just isn't my favorite. A very random audiobook that I listened to was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Killing Vampires. If you're wondering, I listen to all of my audiobooks on Libby, which is a library app, so you can just like borrow them out as you would with a normal book, but they like stay on an app on your phone. And this one I just picked out randomly one day when I needed a new audiobook. I was just like scrolling through some popular audiobooks and that one popped up and I was like, oh, it's different, it looks interesting, I'll give it a listen. And it definitely was interesting, but I also don't think that's my kind of vibe. Honestly, I can see a lot of people who would enjoy it, but I just don't think I like the whole vampire guts and gore graphic description. It's just not for me. So for that, I did give it a 2 stars, but I totally understand that that's like a personal preference thing. I don't think it was the book's fault, but I am glad I tried something new. Another audiobook I listened to was The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I know that this book is a movie, but I haven't seen the movie and I loved this book. This was a 4-star read for me, so I definitely recommend this. If you guys don't know the storyline of this one, it is very unique and kind of hard to describe because so much goes on. But the whole story happens over a span of 24 hours, and within that 24 hours, our 2 main characters go from not even knowing each other to meeting, becoming friends, flirting, etc. And one of my favorite things about this book, which I have never seen an author do before, is that the author would randomly kind of give you an insight to what someone else in the story was thinking about, like someone totally random, like a security guard who the 2 main characters might have walked past, or someone who drove a car down the road that they were walking on. Like it seemed super random, but you would come to find that they were somehow intertwined in this big story, and it just showed a huge like butterfly effect situation. It was super cool, and it was definitely a reminder of how one little decision or one little choice can totally change the direction of your life. It is so cool. I definitely recommend this one. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how it compares, but if that's good as well, maybe check that out. I actually only have one like mystery thriller to talk about, which I'm kind of surprised at. I definitely need to read more of those because that's one of my favorite genres, but I read The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, and this was a 5-star read for me. We had a great kind of couple months with 5-star reads. We found a few and I'm so obsessed. This book is about I can't remember if she's like a psychologist, psychiatrist, something along those lines, who had something kind of traumatic happen, so she quit her job. She now lives at home, and she is also agoraphobic, which means she's scared to leave her house. And so she spends her days at home, and she often kind of like, not spies on her neighbors, but just kind of like checks out the neighborhood, if that makes sense. And one day she sees something that she is not supposed to see. And then a whole stream of events follow as she tries to figure out what she saw, who she saw, what happened, and kind of tries to find justice for the situation. And it is so intense and so good. It had me on the edge of my seat the whole way through. And this is one of those books where it will give you like little pieces of information throughout the book that don't seem necessarily important at the time, but at the end you find out how they all kind of fit into place and how everything is intertwined and it all makes sense, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I not pick up who the person was? How did I not figure this out? Because they definitely give you like little clues along the way. I was personally shocked by the ending. I did not see it coming, and I have seen a few people compare this book to The Girl on the Train. I've read that as well, and I think I honestly preferred this one. I can see how the main characters are somewhat similar in regards to the unreliable witness and like seeing something you weren't supposed to see, but I think those are the only 2 similarities. I feel like this is so different, so I definitely recommend this one. Next, I read The Selection, The Elite, and The One by Kiera Cass, and these were so fun. They were all 4-star reads for me. I know a lot of people read the Selection series when they were younger, when they were in school or whatever, but I never read it. I never even knew about it, and I guess it is targeted for audiences younger than a 23-year-old, but I still loved it so much. It was just like a cute, innocent love story, a bit of mystery in there, little love triangle situation. It was so entertaining. I read through these so quickly, so I would say if you haven't read them, look up the synopsis, see if it appeals to you. It kind of gives me like Hunger Games vibes, but like Royal Family edition, and I'm honestly obsessed. I might end up reading the last 2 books eventually, but I know they're kind of like a mini spin-off with the main characters like kids rather than being like fully based on the main characters from the first 3 books, so I don't know. I will get to it if I feel like it, but at this stage I'm not like desperate to. I also listened to the audiobook of Truly Devious, which is actually another like mystery thriller type thing, so I guess I did read more than one. I honestly really liked this book right until the end, and the end just really sucked, if I'm being completely honest. Like, it was like a 4-star read for me right until the last, like, I don't know, 10% of the book. I feel like the author just rushed the ending. It didn't really make a lot of sense. I was like, wait, there's a helicopter, and then like this thing happened, and then someone died, and I was like, wait, what is going on? And I do understand that it's part of a series, so you'll probably get the answers in the following books. But I feel like even if you have a series, each book individually still needs to make some sense. And this one just didn't for me. It started off so well. I love the concept. I love the world. I love the characters. It was so entertaining. It definitely is like a younger kind of book, I would say. New adult, I'm assuming. The characters are all like teenagers. But the ending, it just really threw me off. And I'm kind of sad about it because up until then, it was really good. If you have read the Truly Devious series, please let me know if it's worth it to continue the series because I'm kind of put off by the end of that one. Because of the ending, I feel like it was 3 stars, but it really had a lot of potential. The next book I have is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. Guys, this is such a beautiful romance. My heart, I loved it. I think I initially rated it like a 4-star read once I finished it, but since finishing it, I feel like it is more of a 5-star read because it's one of those books that I have continued to think about since finishing it. I just really love the characters. I especially just loved Archer. I think he was so gentle and kind and sweet and lovely, and oh my gosh. I think I really love the shy guy trope. I married a shy guy, so I can understand why I like that, but so good. If you guys haven't heard about this book, it's about a woman called Bree who moves to a really small like beach town to get away from something traumatic that happened to her back home. She just kind of like needs to get away from everything. And while she's there, she gets a job and she starts to get to know the people in this town, and she meets this man called Archer. And at first she thinks he's really rude because he doesn't speak to her at all, but it turns out he actually can't speak. And a lot of people in the town kind of think he's weird, he's a bit of an outcast, he's a bit of a loner, but she kind of makes it her mission to kind of befriend him, I guess. Bree's father was deaf, so she knows sign language, and that is also how Archer communicates, but no one else in the town knows that because none of them speak sign language, so she is the only person who can communicate with him, and they build this beautiful friendship that may turn into something else, and just all these things happen, and their love for each other is so beautiful. And the scene where he shows up in the suit, I need to see that in movie form because that just seems like the most like I love this book. Okay, I think it is a 5-star because obviously you can see how much I love it. I also listened to Confess by Colleen Hoover as an audiobook, and guys, this was so good. Colleen Hoover does it again. I feel like you either love Colleen Hoover or you hate Colleen Hoover, but I'm someone who really likes her stuff. And Confess is probably one of my faves from her. I think I've read like 3 or 4 at this point. I Think It Ends With Us is always going to be a favorite for me, but I think this has become my new like second favorite. I don't even know how to describe the storyline of this book. If you want to know what it's about, Google it. But if you like going into books blind, not knowing what it's about like I do, then maybe this is your chance to do that. It just started raining, so I'm sorry if you can hear that, but I'm gonna keep going. Next, I read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And this book is probably one of the like biggest books on Book Talk on BookTube right now. I've heard so many reviews, everyone raves about it, and I honestly didn't love it. I didn't love it. It was like a 3 to 4 stars for me. It was good, don't get me wrong. It was an easy read. I liked the dynamic and the banter between the 2 characters. It was super quick, but it just didn't have that 5-star feel that I expected it to have based on everyone's recommendations. I've heard so many good things about this. I've seen people get tattoos based on like inside jokes in this book, and I just don't get it. Like, I do not get the hype. Again, I feel like the whole idea of like, let's make sexual tension the main driving force of this book is just not my thing, and that was definitely this book, and just kind of disappointing. I just don't love it when lust is the biggest thing, because in my opinion, there is so much more you can do with a romance than the 2 characters having this like lust obsession. The storyline reminded me a lot of The Unhoneymooners, just like in a different environment. If you guys have read that, you'll know what I mean. And I didn't love that one. I didn't love this one. If you did love that one, you'll probably love this one. But yeah, it was just kind of disappointing for me. Don't hate me. I know that some people love this, and that's totally fine. You'll probably love books that I hate, and I'll hate books that you love. It's just how the cookie crumbles, but this was just not that great for me, and I'm just being honest. Moving on to my non-fiction reads, I only have a couple. First, we have Atomic Habits by James Clear. I loved this. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I loved reading books about productivity, habit building, all of that kind of stuff, and this was one of the best I've ever read because The author made it so easy to digest. They laid it out really simply. They made it really easy to understand. You don't have to have any sort of like qualification to be able to read this and actually understand it, which sometimes can happen in non-fiction books when they're going for more of like an academic kind of style. This was very much just written for the normal person, which I really appreciated. So definitely recommend this one, 4 stars. I also read The Meaning of Marriage with Timothy Keller. I thought this was a really solid read. I did feel like I already knew a lot of the concepts that he talked about, but I have read quite a few like Christian marriage/dating books before, and I also went through premarital counseling, so I feel like I've already gone through a lot of these topics. But if you haven't read a lot of marriage books, if you haven't read a lot of Christian-based relationship books, this is like gold. It's full of incredible tips and techniques and stuff like that, so I would definitely recommend it if you're like engaged or newly married. I think those are like the best times to read it. And the last book I have to talk to you guys about is Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. And this book is basically about how to not waste your life. It just kind of puts into perspective which things are actually important, which things are really not important, maybe things you should spend more time focusing on, maybe things you should spend less time focusing on. It made me change the way that I thought about a lot of different things. But those are the 17 books that I've read in the past 3 months. If you guys haven't seen the video that I did for the first 3 months of 2021, I'll link it down below, because I also have heaps of book recommendations in that one as well. My goal this year is to read 50 books, and we're currently at 30, so we are 5 books ahead of schedule, which is great, and it's looking like I might be able to read even more than 50. I talk a lot about books in my weekly vlogs as well, kind of keep you guys up to date with what I'm currently reading and my thoughts at the time. So if you want to keep up to date, make sure you subscribe so that you can watch those. And I also often talk to you guys about books on my Instagram, so follow me on there for more of those updates. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.